The biggest risk of 2024 has always been geopolitics. Middle East is central to that. Between Iran and Israel, we have two militarily powerful nations. In both cases, leadership not that popular, and that is a dangerous or potentially dangerous combination.
Global trade, oil, gold, currencies are all being impacted with immediate effect. How destabilising could this be?
The key there is could. Because it could be nasty. 1/5 of the world's oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz on a regular basis. Iran, if push came to shove, could cut that off. You saw what disruption in energy markets did when Russia initially invaded Ukraine. So there is all that sort of potential this time around. Whether it comes to pass, it's very unclear. That uncertainty, that fear, is what's riding with markets at the moment.
As you say, whether it comes to pass is unclear. If it doesn't and things don't escalate as initial expectations might suggest, how bad or not bad could things become?
Look, by and large, if it settles back down again, and it may well do that, you would sit back and say the world and Australian economies are in better shape than they were expected to be. Recent days we saw the International Monetary Fund revise up its expectations for growth this calendar year to be the same as last calendar year and essentially broadly on track with longer term trends. That's pretty remarkable. There were big expectations of recessions. For most of the world, that hasn't happened, and for the US in particular, it's looking stronger than expected, as is its inflation, as are prospects around interest rates.
This week, the government announced a big $50 billion defence injection. The Middle East, obviously a long way over the horizon for us, but how prepared are we if things really do escalate?
Look, we're not. For a long time, Australia took the peace dividend, if you like, from the late 1980s as Russia, was born out of the old Soviet Union. We haven't kept up with a changing world in all sorts of ways. That's true around technologies. It's true around the changes in geopolitics. That $50 billion is broadly what was expected by a decade from now. The new figure is that defence spending will hit 2.4% of national income here in Australia. That's essentially what was penciled into the intergenerational report, that long-term look we got last August. They were saying 2.3% of national income. So the dollars are broadly in line with what was expected, but the capability doesn't arrive fast.
Amongst this global instability, the Treasurer, of course, is preparing for the May budget, a budget that he says will be responsible. But at the centre of that, of course, was another announcement, the Future Made in Australia Act, and that won't come cheap. So how does he do both?
Well, it is tricky, and there are many good things about a budget surplus. It gives Australia wriggle room, flexibility that many other nations around the world don't have. But it brings a different sort of danger that, we saw under John Howard, Peter Costello. The quality of decision making fell when there was a surplus. My fear, I can't say I'm a grand fan of the Future Made in Australia plans. Some of it makes sense. Some of it does sound like old-style industry protection with mysterious linkages to swing states and swing electorates.
Inflation numbers for the first 3 months of the year will be released next week. Chris, what's the risk that we go the way the US has in recent months and those numbers surprise to the upside, or is there a chance we might follow Europe and see the number fall?
I remain an optimist on next week's figures, whether you're looking at headline, whether you're looking at underlying broadly, 0.75% in the last 3 months, and that will be a pretty good outcome. But I do think our phase beyond that is more likely to be the US than it is to be Europe, or in the sense of our last mile here in inflation may get harder. Part of that, is because we are unusual. You know, it's just over 2 months from now that Australians will get a very large tax cut. You know, more than $20 billion being tipped into the economy. Other things equal, that keeps our economy going, but it also keeps our inflation going. That means we may have more of a challenge than some other nations.
Briefly, given all the instability we've spoken about, do you think we could see cold water poured on a rate cut anytime soon?
I think it already has been by markets, by most economists. The view a while ago was that rate cuts would come sooner rather than later. That view has retreated of late. I've always thought we wouldn't see a rate cut before the end of this year. Remember, the tax cut, 2 months away, is the equivalent of 2 rate cuts all in itself. We're going to get an easing in Australia, but it'll be for taxpayers before it is for those paying mortgages.
Chris Richardson, always great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Rachel.